Today we're going to have a look at this Marshall 6101. It's a 12-inch combo, 100 watt, 30th anniversary Marshall from 1992. And I bought this in December last year, and I knew that the speaker was broken in it, and I was okay with that. But when I got the amp, it actually also had a very weird sound on channel 3. So I started looking at this just the day before yesterday, and I actually found what was wrong with it yesterday. So we're going to have a look at that today. Now, this is a 100 watt EL34 amp, and a lot of different cards within the amp. All the preamp tubes, the 6 of them mounted on this PCB here, and we have the input section. This card is basically actually the channel 3, and I guess that underneath there on the card with the preamp tubes is channel 1 and 2. All the power tubes are mounted in the chassis and connected to the PCB by wires, and that's a good thing. I have a few Kitty Hawk amps with all the tube sockets mounted on the PCB, which is not a very good idea. This amp is infamous for its channel switching, unfortunately. This has a MIDI channel switching. It's a 3-channel amp, and it has MIDI channel switching, which is then this board over here. And apparently, especially the combo model of this one easily gets overheated, which is no surprise. I mean, there are in fact 11 tubes in this amp, so I'm not surprised it gets very warm. And since this amp is the chassis is placed this way in the cabinet, which means that all the heat comes from the tubes underneath and rises up into the chassis. The amp head version, the 6100, was of course then the other way around, with the tubes on top, and had much less issue with the channel switching apparently. But however, this example of this 6101 does not have an issue with the channel switching card yet. I hope I will not suffer that, but so far no problem. The issue with the channel switching and the noise was actually quite something different, and I'm gonna show you what it was. Now, I have my amp connected to this tiny speaker in the corner, just for testing purposes. Just take it off standby. And you probably can't hear, but this is a very silent noise now when it's on channel 1, a clean channel. Switching to channel B, it makes a little bit more noise. Going to channel 3, more noise, but also this. And this only happens on channel 3. I can do the same poking with my chopstick in here on channel 2, and on channel 1 no noise. But on channel 3 lots of noise. Actually, the noise was much worse than this when I first got it. In fact, you could only turn to channel 3 and start playing for a little bit, and then it all went in a noise constantly. So it wasn't playable at all on channel 3, but channel 1 and 2 were not affected. So I realized that this noise that came after playing a while only was affected by the master volume. Turning down the volume on channel 3 did not do any difference on this noise. It was the same level, but turning down the master volume got me rid of the noise. So having a look in the schematic for the amp, I realized that the channel switching is done basically with these two operation amplifiers called IC201 and IC202. 2, which are sort of a switching operational amplifier for 2 channels each, which basically means that in the IC201 comes the signal from channel 1 and 2, and the output of this IC201 goes to one of the inputs on IC202, and the other input on the 202 is from channel 3. So basically you have a switching between 1 and 2, and the other one is from IC201 and channel 3. And after this one there's a capacitor filtering out the DC voltage, I assume, and from there going basically straight to the master volume. So my first thought was that it must be this operational amplifier. So I dug in a bit to the specifications of this amplifier and realized that this particular op-amp has been discontinued for quite some while. But there was a replacement, so I found that on Mouser, and it's called NGM 2121D. And apparently some forums this has even better specification than the original. I can't even remember the name of the original actually. But I also found out that the 2121D was also being discontinued, so I bought a pack of 20. Better safe than sorry. Apparently this little switching operation amplifier is also used in the JCM 900 switching, so might as well have a few spares. They're very cheap, so what the heck. So I changed the IC202 for one of the 2121Ds, and no difference. Crap. It wasn't actually the op-amp, it's something else. So then I started poking around with the cables within here, and the noise came and went, and I tapped on the boards, and whatever board I tapped basically made this noise. Until I realized that most of the noise was when I touched this grey cable. Following this one came to socket over here, and of course the issue was so simple. It's this, the baby here, was not properly connected to its socket. So once the connector is down in the socket properly, no noise. As simple as that. Okay, may not be much of a troubleshooting video, but at least this helped me, and I guess that maybe somewhere someone else has had the same issue with their amp. So I just advise you to have a look at these connectors. These three grey wires, they're from channel 1, 2 and 3, and they are glued. The sockets are glued, but shit happens. As I said, there's a lot of heat, and if this is glued with a melting glue, then of course the heat might dissolve the glue and the connector might come out of the sockets. I don't know. Anyway, just pushing down the socket made the trick for me. Now I also do realize that this amp has got, well, soon 30 years on it, and it will be time to change the capacitors. I probably should do that now, but it's working at the moment, and I realize that it's a heck of a job to take out all the capacitors, because you have to take out all the boards. And as you see, there are quite a few cables here, and I guess these capacitors and these ones are the primary ones to change. So no, not going to do that right now. I'm going to wait until I absolutely have to, which is not right now. Now I'm going to enjoy playing it instead. Okay, thanks for watching.